He bought the blind donkey for $1 because no one else wanted him, because the mountain wind that morning sounded like something grieving, and because the animal's empty, milk-white eyes seemed to hold a question he didn't know how to answer. But nothing could have prepared him for what the donkey dragged to his doorstep the next morning. A metal box torn open by frost and time, humming with a strange pulse that felt like the mountain holding its breath. What lay inside would turn a quiet boy into someone the valley would fear, follow, or try to destroy. The story really began 2 days earlier, when the fog rolled down from the northern ridge thick as wool, swallowing the dirt road and every broken fence post along it. Luke Carson, 14 and weathered in ways that made him look older from a distance and younger up close, trudged up the slope toward Crowell's barn with his coat pulled tight. Scout, his dog, padded beside him, paws whispering through frost-bitten grass. The air tasted metallic that morning, sharp and restless, like the forest was waiting for something to happen. Crowell's barn always creaked before you reached it, as if complaining about the years it had to hold up the mountain's secrets. The old man himself was standing outside, tapping his boot against a stone in that impatient way of his. His gray beard twitched when he talked, and today it twitched a lot. "You're late," Crowell said. His voice was gravel soaked in cold. Luke shrugged. "Fog. You got legs? Fog don't stop legs." But something softened in the old man's face as he looked at him, then at Scout. "Anyway, come on. Got something to show you." Luke followed, steps cautious, because Crowell didn't show anything unless it was trouble or a favor he didn't want to call a favor. Inside the barn, the air smelled like old hay and rusted tools. A low bray drifted from the far stall. Luke walked toward it, Scout sniffing ahead, tail cautious. The donkey stood with its head lowered. Its coat was dark as storm water, legs thin as fence rails, ears drooping with the weight of too many winters. But it was the eyes, those eerie, milky eyes, that made Luke stop. They weren't clouded like sickness. They weren't empty either. They were searching. "This him?" Luke asked quietly. "That's him," Crowell said. "Old, blind, stubborn as an unbroken ridge. Eats little, works slower. Most folks say he's no good." Luke studied the donkey again, watched the way its nostrils fluttered when it caught his scent. Scout stepped closer, sniffed its hoof, then tilted his head with confusion. The donkey brayed softly, almost like recognition. Crowell leaned on the stall door. "You want him?" Luke blinked. "Want him for what?" "Company, work, maybe something else." The old man's eyes drifted to the donkey's face with a strange heaviness. "Found him wandering near the northern ravine 3 nights ago. Nearly fell in. Got him out. Wanted to keep him for myself, but then..." Crowell hesitated, a rare moment for him. "Then I felt like he wasn't meant for me." The donkey shifted, hooves scraping softly. "How much?" Luke asked, even though he wasn't sure why. Crowell held out a wrinkled hand. $1. Luke stared. "That's not..." "Take it or leave it, boy." Luke dug into his pocket, fingers brushing past lint, 2 pebbles, and a tangled piece of fishing line. Finally, he found the last wrinkled, crumpled bill he had. He handed it over. Crowell took it gently, like it was worth more than $1. Maybe it was. "His name's Cole," the old man said. Luke touched the donkey's nose. It was warmer than he expected. "Hi, Cole." The animal let out a low, rattling breath and pressed closer, as if relieved he'd finally arrived. That night, Luke settled Cole into the small, slanted shed behind his house. Scout curled beside the donkey's legs, sniffing him with a mixture of concern and curiosity. The moon hung low, pale as a ghost, lighting up the frost on the ground, Luke sat on the porch, listening to the wind slide through the pines. It was quieter than usual, like the mountain was holding its words back. He didn't sleep well. Dreams came in fragments, a metal door creaking open, chains rattling, something humming in the dark, a cold blue light spreading across a cavern, and white eyes watching him through the gloom. He woke before dawn, breath sharp in the cold air. Scout whined at the door. Luke stepped outside. Cole was gone. Panic sparked through him. He ran around the shed. Snow and frost brushed off hooves had carved a path toward the forest. Scout barked and sprinted ahead, tail straight, body tense. Luke followed. The trail was clear, too clear. The donkey wasn't wandering blindly. He was walking with purpose, hooves landing in precise, almost deliberate places. The forest swallowed them quickly, pines rising like cathedral pillars overhead. A strange stillness coated the air. No birds, no movement, no wind. And then Scout stopped dead. Luke almost collided with him. Cole stood in the middle of a clearing. Beside him, dragged by two broken leather straps, was a metal box half buried in frost and dirt. It was small, heavy-looking, edges dented, surface etched with symbols Luke had never seen before. The metal wasn't rusted. It looked alive. Cole brayed once, soft and patient, as if he'd been waiting. Luke approached slowly, heart drumming. The box vibrated faintly beneath the donkey's feet, sending tiny pulses into the ground. Scout growled, low and uncertain. Luke crouched and reached out. The box was warm. He jerked back in shock. Metal shouldn't be warm in winter. Not like this. But when he placed his hand on it again, the vibration steadied, like it was recognizing him. Something clicked deep inside the box. A line of dim blue light appeared along a crack in the side. Luke froze. Scout barked, stepping back. Cole lowered his head, as if urging Luke closer. The box opened, not with a clang, not with a scream of hinges. It unfolded, quietly, smoothly, like petals opening to daylight. Inside lay a sphere the size of a grapefruit, metallic and matte black, etched with thin lines of glowing blue. It pulsed. Once, twice, matching the rhythm of Luke's breath. When he reached for it, the air tightened around his fingers. Warmth radiated from the sphere. Warmth that wasn't heat, but energy. Something ancient, something withheld for years. He touched it. The world flashed. Not whiteness, not darkness, memory, not his own, running through snow, a dark cavern humming with power, voices echoing through stone, fingers on metal, carving runes into its surface, a heartbeat that wasn't human, and then a voice, clear, soft, inside his mind. You returned. Luke gasped and collapsed backward. Scout rushed to his side, whining. Cole stood still, unflinching, as if he had expected this. Luke scrambled to his feet. The sphere hovered an inch above the box, pulsing faster now. The voice came again, gentle but heavy with age. You carry the mark, the blood of the one who sealed us. The mountain remembers you. Luke shook his head, heart hammering. I don't understand. Cole brayed, louder this time, as if urging him on. The sphere tilted toward him, floating closer. Cold air swirled around them, picking up snowflakes, swirling them into a slow, spiraling dance. Take me. Luke stepped back. Why me? The forest held its breath. Because you are the only one who can open what remains hidden, and the only one who can stop what is coming. A sudden crack split the silence. A branch snapped behind them. Luke spun around. Two men stood at the edge of the clearing. Dark coats, heavy boots, rifles slung over their backs. their faces shadowed beneath hoods. But their eyes, sharp, narrow, locked onto the sphere with hunger. "There it is," one muttered. "Told you the damned animal would lead us right to it." Cole brayed fiercely, stomping the ground. Scout growled. Luke backed toward the sphere. The men stepped forward. "Hand it over, kid," the taller one said. "You have no idea what that thing is." "I know enough," Luke whispered. The man smirked. "No, you don't. That sphere belonged to us, government property, and we're taking it back." The sphere pulsed violently, reacting to their voices. Cole suddenly charged, blind eyes aimed with perfect precision. The men stumbled back in shock. "Grab the thing," one barked. Scout lunged, teeth bared. The clearing exploded into chaos. Snow kicked up, boots slipped, metal clanged. One man fell, rifle skidding across the ground. Luke grabbed the sphere. Energy surged through him, heat and cold and memory all at once. The forest blurred. His veins burned with light. The men froze, staring. "What the?" A shockwave burst from the sphere, blasting outward in a rippling circle. Snow flew, branches bowed, the ground shook, the men were thrown off their feet, crashing into the roots of a fallen pine. Then silence. Luke stood trembling, sphere hovering inches above his hand, pulsing gently now, almost approvingly. Cole stepped beside him. The voice whispered again, "You are not ready, but you will be." The men groaned on the ground, dazed. Scout barked sharply. Luke didn't wait. He grabbed the box, the sphere folding back into it as if obeying him. Cole pressed against his side. Scout circled protectively. They ran. Branches clawed at Luke's coat. Snow hissed under their feet. Behind them, the men shouted, staggering to chase. Luke didn't look back. He reached the edge of his property, lungs burning, hands shaking with cold and adrenaline. Cole stumbled into the shed, exhausted. Scout collapsed in the snow, chest heaving. Luke slammed the door shut, bracing it with an old beam. Only then did he open the box again. The sphere rose softly, hovering before him like a floating heartbeat. "Who am I?" Luke whispered. The voice had no sound, only presence. The last of the keepers. Bloodline of the sealer. In you lies the memory of the mountain. And its power. Luke swallowed. What power? The sphere pulsed. To command what sleeps beneath stone. To awaken what once protected these lands. To silence what threatens them. Luke felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. And those men? They are seekers. They serve hands that should never touch what you now hold. Luke stared at the sphere, heart trembling. Behind him, Cole let out a long, weary breath. Scout pressed against Luke's leg, trembling, but trusting. Luke touched the sphere again. Energy hummed through his fingertips. Your strength will grow. Your sight will deepen. But you must choose, Luke Carson. Will you guard what the mountain gave you, or surrender it and let them take everything? Luke's throat tightened. He looked at the sphere, at Cole, at Scout, at the forest that raised him, and the mountain that watched him. He finally whispered, I'll protect it, whatever it is. The sphere dimmed slightly, like a nod. Then your story begins. The shed trembled as distant footsteps crunched in the snow outside. Luke turned sharply. The men were close again. Too close. He grabbed the sphere. Cole brayed. Scout growled. The mountain wind howled through the trees, and the boy who bought a blind donkey for $1 stepped into the snow, holding the power that could reshape everything and the danger that would soon come for him. Luke stepped out into the cold with the sphere clutched tight against his chest, its faint blue glow bleeding into the snow like a heartbeat caught in ice. Scout moved ahead, hackles raised, breath fogging the air in sharp white bursts. Cole stood behind them in the shed doorway, ears flicking nervously, as if he sensed that what waited beyond the tree line wasn't meant to be met with the soft patience of animals, but with the resolve of someone who had finally stopped running from his own shadow. Snow whispered under Luke's boots. The forest pressed close, pine branches bending like old guardians leaning in to listen. Somewhere beyond the ridge came the crunch of boots on frost. The men weren't trying to be quiet anymore. They knew exactly where he lived now. He glanced at Cole, the donkey's cloudy eyes reflecting the sphere's glow as though he could see through time itself. The donkey brayed softly, a tremor of warning buried in the sound. Scout growled deeper. Luke swallowed hard. "Stay close," he whispered, though he wasn't sure who he meant it for, himself, Scout, or the blind creature who had dragged the future into his yard. The men stepped out from the trees like wolves pretending to be human. Two shadows hardened by cold and purpose, faces half hidden behind their coats. The shorter one had a gash over his eyebrow from where Cole had rammed him earlier. Blood had frozen along his cheek. His rifle hung at his side, ready. The tall one carried nothing visible, which made Luke more afraid of him. Weapons you couldn't see were worse than weapons you could. "Kid," the tall one said, voice too calm for the situation. "You don't want to make this harder." Luke didn't answer. His fingers squeezed the sphere, and it warmed in response. "Hand it over," the man continued, stepping closer. "That thing doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the people who made it, and you're going to get hurt if you think it'll help you." Luke took one step back. Scout barked once, a sharp slicing sound that cracked the cold air. "Careful," the shorter man muttered. "He's already used it once, saw what it did." "Because he doesn't understand it," the tall one hissed. "He's just a mountain boy who doesn't know when he's outmatched." Luke felt something flicker inside him, something dark and old and unwilling to bend. The sphere's pulse synced with his heart. He didn't speak, he just held it tighter. The tall man sighed, like someone tired of pretending to be patient. "Grab him!" The shorter man lunged. Scout leapt first. His teeth sank into the man's coat, jerking him off balance, sending them both crashing into the snow. The tall man raised his rifle, but the moment the barrel glinted in the pale light, the sphere snapped awake. A blast of energy surged outward, not an explosion, not a beam, but a wave of force that hit the trees first, making ice crack and snow explode from branches. The ground shook. The tall man stumbled, dropping his weapon. The sphere lifted itself out of Luke's hands, hovering between him and the intruders. Its light brightened from blue to white, then pulsed. Once, twice, like a warning. The men froze. "Put it down," the tall man shouted, voice cracking with fear. "You don't know what you're doing." Luke's voice finally broke free, trembling but fierce. "Neither do you." The sphere pulsed again, and the shorter man scrambled backward, dragging his partner by the sleeve. "Forget it," he shouted. "Forget the kid. Forget the artifact. We were never supposed to engage alone. This is above us." The tall man cursed, but fear had taken the fight out of him. They staggered into the trees, disappearing into the tangle of branches and fog. Only when their footsteps faded did the sphere drift gently downward, settling into Luke's palms like a living heart catching its breath. The forest fell quiet again. Scout limped back to Luke's side, tail low but wagging weakly. Luke knelt, brushing his hands over the dog's fur. "Good boy," he whispered, voice shaking with adrenaline and relief. Cole nudged his shoulder from behind, warm breath puffing against Luke's neck. Luke leaned into him, letting the trembling inside him settle. When he finally stood, the sphere vibrated softly. "Danger is not gone," the voice murmured inside his head, soft but urgent. They were not the only ones sent. Luke exhaled, breath pluming into the air like smoke. "Then why give this to me?" "Because strength is not found in safety. It is found in what you choose to defend even when the world hunts you for it." Luke swallowed, throat tight. "I'm just a kid." The voice softened. "You are what the mountain remembers, not what they call you." Luke didn't fully understand, but he didn't need to. Not yet. He carried the sphere inside, Cole and Scout following like two shadows bound to him by fate. The cabin felt smaller than ever, the walls bending inward, as if the weight of what he carried pressed against the wood. He set the sphere on the table. It hovered a fraction of an inch above the surface, humming quietly. Its glow dimmed slightly, as though resting. Luke stared at it. "What are you?" The core swirled with blue light, like storm clouds trapped beneath glass. A memory. Of what? Of what came before humans claimed this land. Of what protected it. Luke's pulse quickened. A weapon? A pause. A guardian. He shook his head. Guardians don't shake the ground. Mountains shift. Trees fall. Rivers flood. Protection is not gentle. Luke sank into a chair, fingers dragging through his hair. The sphere's glow cast soft shadows across the cabin walls, illuminating maps nailed to peeling boards, hand-carved wooden figurines his father made years ago, and stacks of firewood drying near the stove. This place was small, quiet, forgettable, and now it held something the world had apparently been trying to find for decades. Scout lay at Luke's feet, eyes fixed on the sphere. Cole settled near the door, ears twitching at every faint sound. Luke exhaled shakily. "They're going to come back, aren't they?" "Yes." He swallowed. "How do I stop them?" "You learn." There was no judgment in the voice. No doubt. Just truth spoken gently, the way someone teaches a child to stand again after falling. Luke stood and paced the small room. "I don't know anything about powers, or mountains, or guardians. I'm just trying to keep my mom from worrying and trying to keep Scout fed, and I barely have enough wood for winter." The sphere pulsed, interrupting his spiraling thoughts. "You are scared." "Of course I'm scared," his voice cracked. "Those men had guns. They knew me. They knew where I lived. Fear is a compass." "Meaning what?" "It points to what matters enough to protect." Luke stopped pacing. Cole brayed softly, as if agreeing. Scout nosed Luke's ankle. His heartbeat slowly steadied. The sphere dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed, like breathing. "There is something you must see," it whispered. "Something your ancestor left behind." Luke frowned. "Ancestor?" "The sealer. The one who hid me before the Seekers formed. The one whose blood runs in you." Luke stared. "You're saying he was family?" "Yes. And he left you a path." The sphere lifted into the air again, floating toward the door. Luke felt himself drawn to follow, fear dissolving just enough for resolve to slip through. He stepped into the cold, the world outside dimming into blue-gray twilight. Scout trotted beside him. Cole followed slowly, head low but determined. The sphere drifted ahead, leading them across the property to the old well near the pine roots. It had been there longer than the cabin, older than Crowell's barn, older than Luke's grandfather's stories. He'd always been told never to go near it. Too unstable, too deep, too old. The sphere hovered above it, casting pale light down the stone shaft. Luke stepped closer, breath fogging. What now? Touch the stone. Luke reached toward the rim, and the moment his fingers pressed against the ancient stones, the world shifted. The frost melted away from the rock. A symbol appeared beneath his hand, one he'd seen on the sphere's surface. The stone vibrated. Then it slid, not outward, inward, revealing a narrow tunnel descending beneath the well. Scout barked once. Cole stomped nervously. Luke's heart pounded against his ribs like a trapped bird. You want me to go down there? The truth waits below. Is it safe? A long pause. Safe? No. Necessary? Yes. Luke inhaled slowly, letting the cold air burn his lungs. All right. He stepped forward. Scout whimpered, pawing at his leg. Luke knelt, pressing his forehead to the dog's. I'll be back. I promise. Scout licked his cheek, uneasy but trusting. Cole nudged Luke's shoulder with a sad, soft bray. Luke took a final breath and descended. The tunnel swallowed him quickly. The air grew warmer, denser. The walls curved inward like ribs of some massive ancient creature. The sphere floated ahead, illuminating the path with its soft, pulsing glow. Far below, the tunnel opened into a cavern, and Luke froze. The walls were carved with symbols, circles, spirals, runes, some glowing faintly as if remembering their own light. At the center lay a stone pedestal covered in dust. The sphere floated toward it, settling above it like a crown returning to a throne. The cavern vibrated. Luke approached, breath unsteady. What is this place? A memory chamber, a vault of what your ancestors sealed to protect this valley. What did he seal? A rift. The air around Luke tightened. A rift. Between this world and the older one beneath it, Luke's skin prickled. A faint tremor traveled up from the earth, almost like something shifting in its sleep. What's in the older one? The sphere dimmed, voice softening. Things that were never meant to wake. Luke felt cold seep into his bones. And the Seekers? They believe the power within the rift will make them masters of this land. They are wrong. It will unmake them, and everything around them. Luke stepped closer to the pedestal, fingertips brushing the stone. So what do I do? You learn what your ancestor began. You learn to control the sphere. If you fail, the rift opens, and the mountain falls. Luke's breath trembled. I can't do this. You are the last of his line. And the forest already answered you. The donkey carried the box to you. The storm parted for you. The ground obeyed you. You are not just anything, Luke Carson. Luke closed his eyes, letting those words settle like embers inside his chest. When he opened them again, something in him had shifted. Not confidence, but a willingness to fight for what mattered. Teach me, he whispered. The sphere brightened, filling the cavern with deep blue light. Then, hold me. Luke reached out. His fingers touched the sphere, and the cavern shattered. Light engulfed him. He saw his ancestor, a man with the same eyes, standing in a storm, sealing a crack in the mountain with the glowing sphere. He saw creatures made of shadow twisting behind the rift. He saw seekers in old uniforms testing the sphere decades ago, failing to control it, unleashing quakes that destroyed half their facility. He saw Cole, younger, stronger, dragging the sealed sphere away from soldiers who chased him through the woods. He saw the mountain bleed, the rift pulse, the valley shake. Then, darkness. Luke gasped as the vision broke. The cavern steadied around him. The sphere hovered inches from his chest. Now you know why they want me, it whispered. And why you found me, Luke whispered. Yes. He tightened his grip on the sphere. Then let's protect this place. We are not alone in this, but we must move quickly. They will return with more. Luke turned back toward the tunnel, but the moment he took a step, the earth trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. The cavern shook. The sphere pulsed sharply. The rift woke. Luke's heart dropped. Why? Because it felt you touch its memory. A crack split the cavern floor, thin but growing, glowing with faint light from below. A sound rose from the crack, something like wind and voices and hunger all twisted together. Luke stumbled back. What do I do? Close it. Control the energy, the way your ancestor did. I don't know how. Trust the mountain. Luke held the sphere tight, breath quickening. He focused on the crack, the light, the voices, the hunger, and something inside him, something buried since birth, rose. Not anger, not fear, something older, a connection. The sphere brightened in his hands. The crack pulsed. Luke inhaled deeply and willed it to close. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the glow dimmed. The trembling stopped. The crack sealed, faintly, imperfectly, but sealed. Luke collapsed to his knees, gasping, sweat chilling instantly on his skin despite the cavern's warmth. The sphere dimmed, as if exhausted, but the voice still whispered, "You did enough. For now." Luke forced himself to stand. "We need to leave. They'll come." Yes. They ascended the tunnel. When Luke stepped out into the cold night, Scout yelped with relief and ran to lick his hands. Cole pressed against him, trembling. But the moment of peace shattered. Voices echoed through the forest. Dozens. Flashlights flickered between the trees. The Seekers had returned, with reinforcements. Luke held the sphere close. Scout growled. Cole brayed. The forest tensed like a drawn bow. The first flashlight beam cut through the trees, catching Luke's face. A shout rose. "There! The boy! And the artifact! Move in!" Luke backed toward the house, pulse racing. He whispered to Scout, to Cole, to himself, "Whatever happens, stay with me." He lifted the sphere. It pulsed once, slow, steady, ready. The footsteps thundered closer, and the mountain, ancient and awake, waited for his command.